What is up? What is going on, everybody? I am back with another Seattle Mariners video. We are going to be diving into the Jerry Dipoto show today and his interview that he had with Mike Salk today on the Brock and Salk show. So I'll dive into that a little bit. Before I do that, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you're new and lurking on the road to 2,500 subs, 3,000 subs. Free way to help out the channel. Hit sub, hit that like button as well. Like I said, just a free way you can help out my channel and help it grow. So I appreciate everybody that does that. Normally, I don't dive too much into these interviews, and it's not that I don't think they're interesting. It's just that they're kind of nothing burgers. I judge GMs and coaches based on the actions, not so much what they say. I judge them based on what they do. I was just saying what that was back. There's a book. I see it in the corner there. I was like, what? So I don't really put much stock in anything that coaches and general managers say. A football coach will go out there and tell you how they have to establish the run, and then they throw the ball 45 times in the first 45 plays. You know what I mean? So it's all stuff like everything Jerry Dipoto says. I don't really care. Go out and get me a winner. Build me a team that can win, or us, a team that can win a World Series. I don't care what you say. Just like the press conference on Tuesday, if the Mariners win the World Series next year, ain't nobody going to care that Jerry Dipoto was kind of off-putting. If Jerry Dipoto was humble up there and was like, hey, we screwed up, we need to be better, and the team loses next year, no one's going to forgive him because he was nice in a press conference. Winning cures all. The Mariners need to go out and find a way to win more ball games and get themselves back into the postseason. It's simple as that. With that said, I do want to dive into this because I did find some of Jerry's comments a little snide, a little off-putting, a little condescending, a little arrogant on Tuesday. And I talked about that, and I do believe those comments came off that way. To clear the air a little bit, because I had a couple people message me and talk about firing Dipoto and everything. I have no problem with Jerry, Justin, and Scott being back for 2024. If I bought the Mariners yesterday, I would have retained all three. I think overall, this front office has done a lot of good. I think it's done more good than bad. That doesn't mean there hasn't been bad trades, bad deals, bad things happen. Every front office makes mistakes. I do think there is a core and a foundation in place that can win. Jerry and Justin have proven they can put that core together. What they have not proven is that if they can get those extra pieces in place to put the team over the top. And when I say over the top, this team has been good the last 3 years. It has. 90, 90, and 88. That's a good baseball team. This is the best 3-year stretch of baseball maybe since 2000 through 2002 that the Mariners have had. That's awesome. That's cool. I'm glad this team is not a bottom barrel garbage team. I appreciate that. It's much more watchable, but we want more. We want another piece of the pie. We tasted the pie last year. We tasted it, and it was amazing, and it was so much fun getting back to the postseason. But now it's time to take the next step. It is time to jump forward. I want the Mariners to be the 2016 to 2022 Astros. I know the Astros taking a bit of a step back this year. I didn't include them. They could win the World Series for all I know. I want them to be that dominant force. I want them to be the Red Sox and Yankees of the late 90s, mid 2000s. I want them to be the Dodgers and the Braves. Remember going to Fenway in like 2004? You were dreading it because you just knew that fan base and that lineup was going to kill you. I want that for the Seattle Mariners. I want them to be, that alpha team. I want that. I want them to be a 95 to 100 win team that just can kick your butt without even really you knowing it. Sort of like when the Dodgers swept the Mariners this year. Mariners were kind of in a couple games, and then when it's all of a sudden Dodgers just came in and swept you. I want the Mariners to be that team. They're good, but good is not good enough. We need to take the next step forward. They need to take the next step forward. So that's where I'm at with that. That's my little rant there. Let's get into the questions and the answers that Jerry gave. Shout out to Jag the Jag page on Twitter or X. He does this for every one of the Dipoto shows. He pretty much bullet points the questions and answers. So go check out his Twitter page, subscribe or follow, whatever it is on Twitter. Really appreciate that he did this. So I'm using the bullet points from his notes So it's really cool that he puts that together, just makes it easier to follow. First question from Salk was, you spoke to the media for an hour on Tuesday. Start with 54% win percentage and doing the fans a favor. So comment on that. I'll go bullet point by bullet point here. First, Jerry says, first, I'm generally embarrassed by the way the comment came out. And one other, but first, I'm generally embarrassed by the way that comment and one other was received. I'm just going bullet point by bullet point. That's kind of a, I'm sorry you took it that way kind of answer, but whatever. I've made mistakes, and this is one of those times. I did a poor job illustrating the point I was trying to make. I tried humor to lighten a grave question, but it's not what the moment called for. Listen, if any of us talked for 2 hours on a podium, we'd probably stick our foot in our mouth a couple times. I get it. Completely whiffed. It makes, this is Jerry again. I completely whiffed. It makes more sense to me than fans in the media. Our goals to win championships, not be mediocre. I do kind of hate that he threw it. It makes more sense to me than fans in the media. Again, almost a little condescending, but I don't know. The best I can do is continue to be candid and accessible. We want our fans to feel like they are part of the team. Since the divisional format, decade-long segments, teams who achieve 54% winning percentage over a decade tend to end up in the World Series. 19 teams have done this, and 16 of them have played in the World Series. I do think the 54%, and I don't think fans, I think some fans took that comment the wrong way. He wasn't saying 54% in 1 year, which is what, 86 wins? I don't know, 85 wins, something like that. His point was, over the course of 10 years, if you build a sustainable enough team that you're averaging 54%, winning 54% of your games over 10 years, eventually some of those years is going to be 94, 95, and you'll be in and hopefully win a World Series. It's kind of a weird method. It's a little too much for me. Just kind of like, just build a winning team. Easier said than done, but you know what I mean. But so I don't think, for fans that were taking it, he's talking about winning 54% in 1 year. That wasn't the point. And I think fans in general weren't so much upset about that. It was more the doing the fans a favor, I think, is the thing that hit more with fans, not so much the 54% thing. Acquiring a big star is easier than developing. And when it comes to signing, it also comes down to the big star wanting to sign. True. It comes down to money and everything like that. None of us are happy being home. We feel proud of what we've built over time. The roster is built to be a championship roster moving forward. We need to go out and add extra pieces, continue to get better offensively. I don't agree. I don't disagree. I think he's right. They need to go out and get some pieces somewhere in the middle of the order. I do think the foundation is here, that a championship team can be built from what is here. But they're going to have to go. They got to go over the next hump. They're kind of a perennial wild card team right now. Well, perennial. They made it once, but you don't want to be just a 9-7 football team every year. How do you get to that next step? And that's what they've got to figure out here. One of the questions was, can you clarify on the reports from AJ Pierzynski on Cal being forcibly told to apologize? So if you guys didn't hear it, Ryan Divish was on with AJ Pierzynski, former catcher, and he said through his sources, Pierzynski did, that Cal Raleigh was forced to apologize for his comments. Right now, Ryan Divish, who I trust, said from his sources that was not the case, and Cal was not told to apologize for that. I don't think either of them are lying. This is some of the stuff I hate about the offseason. I really do, because we start arguing like, who, is it do well, not do good? We start arguing the stupidest stuff. I don't really care. I hope the organization didn't make Cal apologize. Jerry was pretty adamant that they didn't. Jerry's answer was that didn't happen. We did not speak to Cal. Cal has his opinions and he is free to share them. I said it to Cal. I appreciate that. We all want to win. There was no forcible scolding. We didn't ask him to apologize. It's an emotional thing. At the end of emotional runs, you say emotional things. So I hope they didn't make Cal apologize, because I think that's just a bad look if they did that. Whether they think that or not, I don't really care, but they should have done it. Going off, like I said, what Divish said, for his understanding, his sources, Cal was not made to apologize. I wonder if AJ Pierzynski's sources are more player related and they speculated and said, hey, he was told to do this, that's why that happened. I don't know. I hope he wasn't made to, but it's also just, it's just the stuff of the off season. We're just like, oh, we got to go through all of this here, essentially. Next question was, is it concerning at all having key leaders ask about the future? Jerry said, no, they should ask about the future. It was a weird feeling coming to the ballpark and not having a game matter, meaning game 162. We started the month of September in first place. So we wound up here. Introspection is hard, and we all, myself included, could have done more. We don't have a huge gap to close. We needed to fill out the roster. That makes more sense. We'll get back after it. Listen, I don't think they're that far. They were. Like on September 1st, the Seattle Mariners were in first place. Now, they don't hand out trophies for being in first place going into the last month. So while that was awesome, it was not the end goal for this team, and that they didn't even get in the playoffs. I don't think the gap is that far. Now, one of the problems is Texas has snuck up and passed you, or at least, for now, they've passed you, and congrats to them advancing to the ALDS. So you have a couple teams you're chasing. I don't think the gap is that big, but again, they've got to make the moves to do it. So a lot of this just comes down to, these are words, you got to show it. And we haven't even started the offseason. I'm not yelling at Jerry for that, but proof's going to be in the pudding. Proof is going to be in the pudding. Can you see how some fans, this is Salk again, can you see how some fans didn't feel that this was a step forward? Jerry said, I hope that given a moment to step away from emotion, we get better at everything short of striking out and winning percentage. I think he's saying that, I think what he's saying is we want to get better all the way around the board, even little things. Everything we did over year over year was a step forward in how we execute the fundamentals of baseball. I don't really get what he's saying there. I guess they've been pretty good I'm not sure if we're talking about the fundamentals or just what they do as a front office. I'm not really sure about that answer. We lack the clutch gene. That's true. We've always been good at winning one-run games. It just didn't happen this year. One-run games come down to a lot of factors that are just not in your control as a baseball team. The Mariners have been fortunate, good in those games the last couple of years leading up to this year. And listen, good bullpen helps. Good teams help. Good teams are going to be better in one-run games. Mariners were a little snake bit in extra inning and one-run games this year. I don't think they necessarily need to go out and figure out how to win those games. I think having a little bit better contact hitters might help in some of those late game situations and stuff like that. Maybe some veteran presence will help a little bit. But they were definitely a little snake bit in those games. But, those games come down to a lot of variance. You don't want to leave it up to close games because that stuff can happen. If you start focusing, this is Jerry again, not me. If you start focusing on the wins, you start playing like you did in September. If the end game is to win, you lose sight of the fundamentals. Okay. I think what he's trying to say, I think this is kind of a roundabout way when we say don't try and hit the 8-run home run. I think what he's saying is you show up going win, 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 win. And you forget about every other little thing you've got to do to get to that win. I think what he's saying is it's one pitch at a time. If you get down 3-0, you're not going to hit a 3-run home run if you're leading off. You've got to get on base. You've got to get the line moving a little bit. I think that's what he's trying to say. It's a very, very weird statement. I don't know. I think that's what he's trying to say. I'd love to be a 110 win team every year, but I just don't know if that's possible. We need to turn wins into playoffs, outcomes, and World Series. I don't think anybody's asking for this team to win 110 games. Excuse me. I think everybody knows 110 is really, really difficult. I know some of you are been critical of it and of him and everything, and me too at times. I don't think anybody said they're going to need to win 110. But it goes back to what I said earlier. I don't really care what the win total necessarily is, but I want this to be the alpha team. And whatever that number ends up being, fine. But I don't want this to just be... the Mariners right now are very similar to me in terms of like the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm not talking about how they're built necessarily. Blue Jays are a good baseball team. They're a playoff caliber team. But they weren't winning the World Series this year. They just weren't good enough. The Mariners are kind of in that same boat. They're solid. They're okay. I think if you left the roster exactly the same, the Mariners could compete for the playoffs next year. It's not enough to just compete for the playoffs. They've got to take the next step forward. No one's asking for 110 wins. What we're asking for a team that is built to win a division and then go on to win the World Series. As you studied, this is Salk again, as you studied these teams over the years, is there any trend line for when a team goes from good to great? When your prime, Jerry said, when your prime players are playing in their peak years, 26 to 30, our average age is at the low end of that spectrum. And that's true. Like Julio's 22. The pitching is still young. So I agree with that. I think there's a good core here. I'm no disagreement there. All of our players are lining up to be in the years, George, Cal, et cetera. Along the way, we'll consistently try and add impact talent to push up to the next level. We feel the foundation team is entering its peak of the potential. We want to win championships over time. There is no magic sauce. Listen, I agree that there's nothing you can ever do to win a World Series. To guarantee a World Series. There is no move. The Mariners could go out and sign Shohei Ohtani, keep Julio, keep everybody else, trade Marco Gonzalez for Ronald Acuna, trade, I can't, Brian O'Keefe for Mookie Betts, and it would not guarantee a World Series. It is hard to go through that process. I agree with that, but I want a team that can do it, that can be there. Because right now, this team just, to me, it's not a World Series team. It's a good team. It's not a World Series team. So how do you get to that step? I agree with him on the core. Got to add the pieces. There's a couple other questions here, but I'll get to the last one. Is the organization in a place now where you can afford to deal from the system and still maintain the winning position? It goes over a couple things. At the end, he says, we have payroll flexibility going into next year. I hope so. I hope they have payroll flexibility. But we've heard that term before, and it hasn't done anything. Now, we'll see. Listen, maybe Stanton and the ownership group has opened up the checkbook, and Jerry hasn't pulled the trigger and hasn't made the right deal. Maybe Jerry has been all in for some guys, but Stanton and the ownership group has said no. It's probably something we'll never really know until 10 years later when everybody's gone. But regardless, this team has to get better. And I'm talking to everybody in the Mariners organization. I'm talking to Scott. I'm talking to the players that didn't play well in September. I'm talking to Jerry, Justin, John, the ownership group, the board of directors, everybody that has any say in what player is on the field. I'm talking to every single one of them. The team needs to take the step forward. I said it. I came out and said, I am in support of these guys being back. If you're not, I get it. I do. I get being done with it. I completely understand. I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I'm here to give my opinion. I was wrong on the offseason last year. I said I thought they did a good job. I thought that the core taking that next step forward, I thought Colton Wong would be an upgrade over Adam Frazier, Teo over Mitch, and AJ Pollock and Kelenic would provide a good platoon. And I thought it was enough to get them back to the playoffs and over the top. I was wrong. Guys, and my channel is not here to be right necessary about things. It's to talk about it. It's to give my opinions on it. I am going to be wrong a lot. I am. I'm a fan, just like you guys. I'm also not paid to be right or wrong. Jerry, Justin, those guys are. They're the ones that have got to make it happen. So it's time. And listen, I am not saying they need to be frivolous and just, who's that free agent? I don't care. Get him. He's a free agent. Go get him. You need to be smart. You need to get guys who are going to fit in here and help make this team better. And you don't want like a Chris Bryant or Trevor Story contract that would hamper you from getting guys locked up, down the road, some of your younger guys. But you can't, you've got to find something here, whether it's in the middle of the order, whether it's another pitching arm, whether it's another ace. I don't care. A run saved is good as a run earned. They need to make something to get this team over the top, because we've seen the bad. We've been through the gut-wrenching years of the Mariners. We've seen them lose 100 games, and we suffered through it. We wanted to see them get back to respectability. And that's, to this front office's credit, they have done that. But now we've been respectable. They won 90 in 2021. We saw them take that step forward last year and almost, push the Astros and compete with the Astros in the ALDS. And you guys know, I said in my post game at the end of the Astros, I keep talking about this, but I said it last year at the end of the, after game 3 against Houston. This was an amazing season in 2022, but now you have to take the next step. They did not take it in 2023. They didn't. That is a failure. That is. They can talk about some organizational wins, and I'm sure there are some, just as any organization does. If you own a business, anything, there's always some wins to take away from things. But if your sales were down 6% from last year, at the end of the day, it's the bottom line. And the Mariners lost more games than they did the previous year and didn't make the playoffs. The core is here. They have a good core. The foundation is solid. They have done a good job building that. Now, Jerry, Justin, Scott, John, the ownership group, has to get this team that next couple pieces. I will dive into more this offseason who I think those pieces are. Haven't gone through and looked yet, but that's my take on this Jerry Dipoto interview. Let me know what you guys think about it and everything. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back with more Mariners and Seahawks content later in the week. Have a great night, everybody, and go Mariners. Peace.